In this video, I'm going to show you how to go over and make this particular part. And then I'm going to highlight the really important part. One of these steps in here is actually kind of the key learning here. We've got different tools we're going to use, but for the most part, there's one part in here. There's one section that I will be talking about that is kind of the key learning for this particular step. Anyway. So the first thing that the instructions say is to, let's see, create this base right here. So create a pentagon sketch and extrude the pentagon with a taper angle of 45 degrees. I'm going to be using Onshape mostly because of a limitation with Inventor not really working for me right now, but it's essentially the same, and so you're going to have to just find the tools and where they are in Inventor, but they're so very similar that I'm confident you'll be able to find those. Anyway, so I'm going to start a sketch. I'm going to create it on this work plane right here, and then Inventor automatically flips your view, but Onshape does not. And so from there, I'm going to then just sketch that pentagon, and in Inventor it'll ask you how many sides you want. For Onshape, you have to kind of click and then identify the number of sides by moving up and down. From there, you can make up the dimensions for the most part. I'm going to use a dimension of 1.5 for the diameter of an inscribed circle, and then another thing that I like to do is use this vertical constraint, and I'm just going to make one of these corners vertical from the center. That makes it fully constrained, and so it's lined up, and sometimes it'll be things kind of don't work quite as nicely if it's not fully constrained. So I've got that. Going to extrude it, and anytime we're doing something 3D, we should look at it from a 3D view. We're going to create something new. We're going to extrude this. I'm going to extrude it about 0.2. Again, the dimensions largely don't matter, but for the most part, we can, just kind of make a guess. The other thing is we're going to look for something that's the draft angle. And anytime we're extruding, we can actually, the instructions said to go 45, we can create what's called a draft. And in this case, I gotta flip it. And this is an angle that's used for casting. And so if you have a draft angle, it just allows your part to actually be removed from the mold, whatever it is. Sometimes it's sand, sometimes it's metal. It kind of changes depending on what it is. And so I put in there, and you can see that I've got that. I'm going to create a sketch, and I'm going to do this only because Inventor requires it. Onshape doesn't require this next step, and so from there I'm going to be skipping this step, but for Inventor you can't. I'm going to create a sketch on this next plane right here, and I'm going to use and look for something called Project Geometry. And this one is called Use, but it's also Project or Convert. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab that tool, select right here, and what it does is it takes all of those lines that are on the shape already, and it brings it up to our sketch. So now we have that already there. And again, I should be looking at this straight on. I'm not going to add anything else to this because my instructions say that I should just be extruding with another taper, and in this case take a look at the injection molding and see what that taper angle should be. Again, it's called the draft angle, and that's what we're going to be able to see on here. So I've got the sketch. I've used the Project Geometry tool, and then from there I have a sketch with all of those shapes on it. Again, if I'm doing something 3D, I should look at it 3D. Going to change and again add a dimension which I think is pretty close to the correct dimension for this particular part. It's actually a little mini screwdriver holder. Again, I'm going to do a draft angle, and I'm going to draft them all inside, so it all kind of tapers in. Again, so this part would actually very nicely remove from a mold of some sort. There we go. That's the next step. The next thing we're going to do is go to this loft feature, and you'll see that there's this yellow plane going on right above here, and that's actually what we call a work plane. And so what we're going to do is make a new plane, and on Onshape it's like this. Inventor it's slightly different, and when I return I'll show you how that all works. But for now we're looking for the work plane or plane tool. Then I select an entity. It guesses that I want an offset plane, which is good. That is what I want. And then from there I'm going to move up, and I believe another 0.25 would be a pretty good distance for this one. So it's going to go from pentagon shape to circular. We're going to create a loft, but first we need to have a plane to put this sketch on. So now from there, getting this plane, and you see I have a bunch of other planes that are kind of interfering. So if I wanted to, I could hide these. Inventor hides those, so another reason I kind of like Inventor a little bit more. Another thing we can do is if you have a plane, it shows up on your browser right here. I can click there and it will start a sketch from there. Then again, looking at it straight on, you can see things have kind of tapered in. And then from there, I started with the center of my shape on the origin. You can, if you did that, create a circle straight from there. But if not, what you can do is actually use the project geometry. You get all of these, and then from there, you should be able to do two things. First, kind of create, if you create a circle that kind of recreates that inscribed circle. So I make that tangent, I make that tangent, and I make another one tangent. That is fully constrained, and then from there I can create another circle, and if this circle is concentric, this one and this one, it will show up. If you use the origin, you can just use that bit as well. So from there I'm going to mention this, and I believe 0.375 is a good number for this. Nope. Maybe it's 0.75. There we go. We want it just a little bit smaller, so it kind of necks in a little bit. So I'm going to go from this shape up over to this shape and trying to keep it more or less proportional with this. Maybe even a little bit bigger might be too big there. And so again, there we go, 0.875 works for mine. Again, the dimensions don't largely matter. After that, we have a shape that's going to go, and according to our instructions, we're going to use the loft feature. And so from there, we're going to have it go, and basically with this loft feature, again, Inventor has the same thing. We're going to add some material. We're going to basically go from this shape right here. Again, you'll need a sketch for Inventor, and then I'm going to go to this particular circle right here. You can see that the loft basically goes from one shape and then blends into that other shape. And so there we go, we've got it all done there. And then the next step here is to extrude this again with that draft angle or taper is what we can call it. I'm just going to go straight in. Onshape does it this way, but in Inventor you need to create a sketch there and then use that project geometry. But you shouldn't have to actually create any new geometry. You can just use that circle that already exists from there. There we go. For the most part, this is an important step to be at because it asks you right here to create a shell feature. And so right here we can see it's kind of a symbol, all the same size all the way around. And so what I'm going to do is use the shell feature like they ask. Alright. So for that, I'm going to look at the bottom of this. Again, we're doing something 3D, so we're going to look at it at a kind of 3D size. This asked for 1 to 2, so millimeter. I can type in millimeter just to see, and that's actually pretty close to what we want. And so from there, we've got this all shelled out, and there you go. That is an important kind of milestone to get to. Then what we're going to do is go through here, and it asks us to delete this shell feature, but I'm going to show you kind of a better way to do that. Actually, I will delete that shell feature. Let's see, there, deleted. It asks for a short little extrusion right here, so again, in Inventor, create a little extrusion. I'm going to use 3 degrees. That tends to be a good one. It's flaring out in the right way, and this one's only about 0.05. It's very short. Okay. Now we've got this. Here is the important learning. So I'm going to actually create that shell feature again, and I'm going to click right there. I'm going to make sure it's that kind of 0.05, working in inches. And there we go. That looks like a pretty good shell feature. From there, we can create those holes. And it says, hey, let's make this hole right here, but this time we're going to want it to be tapered. So we actually have to use the make a circle. And that's very rare for me to say, hey, make a circle for a hole, because we should really be using that hole feature. Again, lining everything up with the origin or going concentric with that other part. And so I'm going to dimension this. I believe. Actually, I'm going to make it 0.25. That should be a good size. Alright, kind of keeping it proportional. From there, I can extrude. An important kind of cool thing that you can do is we're going to flip that around, we're going to remove that material, and the instructions actually say it's going to go almost to the bottom of this portion right here. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to say up to face, and then I'm going to say, hey, to this face right here. And then I'm going to actually do an offset, so it's not quite all the way down. It should actually be offset by about 0.5. So it's not going to go all the way down, and then we should be all right there. Okay. The next step is to create a sketch, and we're going to put some of those other holes going on there. You can, if you want, create a point like that, and then dimension it to the appropriate amount. And then there's actually a circular pattern tool, so you can say I want this patterned. We already have a center going on there, and then we can say that we want there to be 5 of them total. And from there, now we have 5 different points that we can create holes with. Depth I'm actually going to change to about 0.375. In the diameter I'll keep it 1/8, because that looks about proportional to the drawing. Okay, so this is actually one of the steps that you'll be asked to do, which is make all these holes with the shell being done prior to making those holes. And what you can see here And actually, I'm going to leave that to the next video.